Good evening, everybody. I'm Celeste Holly, and I'm co-host this evening for our monthly Magic Mixer. And this evening we have Robin Bersson presenting on the topic of the power of forgiveness.
Bersson.
Bersson, Robin Bersson presenting on the power of forgiveness. And her topic is going to cover, I have to slide that, forgiveness and the miracle and magic of forgiveness. It is essential for our ability to move from an old pattern, choice, belief, or identity. It miraculously frees you from negative bonds held between you and the event, person, or internal process. Forgiveness requires the courage to be powerful enough to surrender. And I know that Robin will have lots of other things to talk about other than this little piece of paragraph that identifies what she is presenting to us this evening. And I am going to hand this off to Robin. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's my honor, guys, to be here. I love this community, and I'm really happy that on this time, 9/11, the anniversary of 9/11, that we're actually bringing forward forgiveness. I think the energy is just so important, not to mention that we're living in such a time right now where there's so much discord and there's so much people taking self-righteous stands and not communicating. And truthfully, I think that forgiveness is linchpin to all of this. And for me, on what I know, and it's important to say this, forgiveness is the miracle of magic. It's an essential ability to move from an old pattern, an old choice, an old belief, or an old identity into the new without taking the time to forgive, and then standing in that forgiveness so that you allow yourself the time to integrate it into self. We don't change. We don't move forward. We kind of go round and round and round in old cycles that may, on the face of things, look a little bit different. But when you peel the artichoke a little bit to get to the heart of the artichoke, you realize, oh, it's just a different leaf of the same artichoke, and so I really am excited to talk about forgiveness because it frees us from the negative bonds that are held between us, an event, a person, or an internal process. But it also frees us from the positive bonds that keep us connected to an event, a person, or an internal process, because we sometimes are kept in a place, an identity, in a pattern, because we're nervous of bringing something else in because, oh, this is working well enough, or this is working okay, or this is really who I've been for the last many years of my adult life. And so for me, I wanted to talk about what the steps of forgiveness are. And this comes from my teacher, Lazarus. So I'm going to just go through that with everybody. Step 1 about forgiveness. And this is not the process, but just the 7 components of forgiveness. Forgiveness allows your imagination and your expectation to lift beyond their limits so that things can happen that you can't imagine and that you don't expect. So it allows us with forgiveness to imagine what is unimaginable, to expect what we have never, ever even brought into our consciousness as something that we can expect. And guys, you don't have to write down if you don't want to. You can certainly, but I'll be happy to share my notes with everybody if you reach out to me, okay? Number 2, forgiveness amplifies coincidence, and synchronicity. Amplified coincidence or synchronicity is a harbinger or a messenger that alerts you, telling you that the resonance of magic, the resonance of mystery, and thus magic and power is present. Synchronicity is like a monitor. And when the resonance of mystery is present, that alarm goes off, ka-ching. And when the resonance of mystery is high, magic and power are present. The archetypes are at play, and God, Goddess, all that is more present and ready to participate, more available. And that is where miracles do happen. And this is what forgiveness offers to each of us. When you forgive, mystery, magic, and power are amplified, and you draw the energy of the archetypes and of God, Goddess, all that is into your reality. And I know that's a mouthful. Here's step 3. Forgiveness also opens you up to superseding and surpassing your current levels of accomplishment, your current levels of happiness, and your current levels of success. And you don't even need to put a label on it. All you need to do is attach to the function of what it is that you're looking for and allow the form to begin to materialize in your world. Number 4, forgiveness triggers a transcendent experience that can produce transcendent change. A transcendent experience can be something like watching a sunrise, watching a sunset, anything that touches your soul. Takes us then to a point where it goes beyond what we're seeing, feeling, and experience and creates a resonant causation that allows us to bring forward into ourselves in a way that we may never have done yet before. Forgiveness, number 5. Forgiveness opens to the energy of the between. And for those of you that aren't Lazarus people, we call that place the liminal. But in that place, the liminal, it's a place of being. It's not a place of doing. It's a place where you're not connected to time. You can see without attachment. I'm sorry? Did somebody say something?
I was talking to my cat.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I said no.
And the liminal space is where the force of forgiveness, the light of forgiveness, and the power of paradox and complexity are found. This one I want to say again. Forgiveness opens the energy of the between, or the liminal, the place where we are in being rather than in doing. And it's where the force of forgiveness and the light of forgiveness, the power of paradox and the power of complexity are found. Forgiveness amplifies choice. Wise choice, right choice or righteous choice, choice that adds to your complexity, drawing on more parts of who you are and the grace of yourself. That which comes the grace of self is that part of self that comes naturally to you, your willed choice and your empowered choice. So your wise choice, your righteous choice, your willed choice, and your empowered choice. Forgiveness amplifies all of those aspects of our choice. Number 7, forgiveness allows you to lift, allows goodness, truth, and beauty to be profound, transcendent, and catapult you forward. Any questions? So now I'm going to go into a 7-step process. Okay. But if we want to forgive, and this, when I think of the process, and again, it's because of Lazarus, I think of it as a half moon, right? With 1 on one side and 7 on the other, and 4 being the linchpin. And the first 3 parts of a process are the constricting energies, or those energies that can stop you in your tracks from going to point 4, which is that linchpin energy, that being place, right? That then allows you to open up into the positive energies to create the change or the forgiveness of anything you want. So 1, 2, and 3, constricting emotions, constricting energies. 4, linchpin or being. 5, 6, and 7, expanding energies. Okay, so the first energy is you need to own your resistance to forgiveness and release it. This can come from a place of anger, rage, guilt, indebtedness, shame, to name a few, okay? But it can also come from your resistance because things are going well. Wow, my identity is solid. My success is enormous. My magic is astronomical. Those are also things that can stop us in our tracks from forgiving, because forgiveness is not just forgiving a negative. It's forgiving the positive. Number 2, we need to go through the stages of grief, because if we are going to change, we have to honor the fact that with any change, yeah, negative, I'm still going to have grief about it, but the positive stuff, that's where I may really have my grief. This has served me well. Or shame. I'm a person whose my root emotion is shame. And so for me, letting go of shame, which has served me well, even if it's been difficult, it has served me well. It has been a catalyst for my changing. And so I need to even be willing to let go of that. So step 1 of grief is denial. And these come from Louise Hayes, I believe, from way back, her stages of grief. Number 2 is I reject what it is I'm working on, and I can even get angry about it. Number 3 is then I get anger and I reject at another deeper level. So the first one I look at is more like the anger is the predominant emotion. And the second I look at is the rejection, but it can go either way. You can look rejection and then anger. That's just really up to you in the process of grief. And next one, which is a big one for many of us, is guilt. Okay, we have to look at what it is that we're feeling guilty about, because if we're feeling guilty about that, we can't change it and we can't go through the grief process. The next one, after you've done those 4, is we begin to bargain. Like, when my husband passed away, I can't tell you how long I stayed in that bargaining place, right? What if I do this? Can I connect to him this way? What if I do this? Can I bring it back this way? And I had guilt, like, even though we had a great relationship in many ways and a very loving relationship, it was, what did I not see that I could have done differently, that possibly could have helped Jim to see a future, to stay alive? So again, guilt for me, it was a big one. And each of them are flowing So sometimes with whatever it is you're working on, they're not always going to be the same. Okay? Next, after bargaining comes depression. Okay? And you get sad and you get depressed because you're beginning to own all of these other things that got you here. And it is okay and essential, actually, to feel your depression. After depression comes disorientation. You get confused. How could all this have happened? How did I not see it? All of this other kind of stuff. But you need these things to integrate and change. So these are the 7 processes. Step 3, after we go through grief, is we move consciously, through the stages of forgiveness: denial, blaming of self. And here what I wrote is, when you blame yourself, you really have to give it voice. You have to vent it. And by giving it voice, I'm not saying that you need to scream to the universe. You can write it down. You can share it with yourself. You can do whatever it with your team of seen and unseen, your close community, whatever it is that you need to do, but you must give it voice. And then you need to feel pity. So much pity that you're wallowing in it. And you can get hostile and aggressive in that pity. And you can get passively aggressive in that pity. But you need to go from the depression into the pity. And then you become indignant. And this is where we feel self-righteous. Well, I didn't do this because, and that's why. Okay, and move from that place of self-righteousness to becoming conscious. Because if you stay in that place of self-righteousness, you're immovable, it's immobile. There's no movement there. And so in order to move beyond that and move into becoming conscious, which is you asking yourselves, or me asking myself, how did I create this, cause it, or allow it? How did I create this, cause it, or allow it? Answering of that will take you from self-righteousness into consciousness. Very, very, very simply. Then from there, we move into freedom. And finally, into integration. And we can use this process to propel ourselves through this. It doesn't have to be long. It's not like you have to spend weeks, hours, or days on it. Sometimes it's just, okay, 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 okay. Maybe a little bit more in one of the steps. I've got to stand here a little bit longer. Okay, okay, got to stand here a little bit longer. And then here I am. And when I'm in the here I am, I always allow myself the time and the breath and the love to integrate it. Oh, I see you, Robin. There you are. Uh-huh. Thank you. Thank you. I've waited a long time to see you, Robin. Just like this. The 4th step is a series of remembrances. In any forgiveness, I always forgive myself first for letting it happen. And the reason, and I'm not saying that you need to do that, but for me, I realized for many years and subsequent to many, many nightmares that I was forgiving externally to myself, but I wasn't forgiving me. And we know nothing changes till we do. So for me, I always begin with myself. Whatever I did to punish or hurt doesn't have anything to do with healing. Forgive the why. And this is something from Lazarus that has helped me so much, is because how can one, if somebody has been the recipient of grotesque abuse of any kind, and I ask them to forgive that person for the event or the action, they may go through the steps, but how can you forgive the unforgivable? So what Lazarus taught me to do is not to spend as much time on the what, but focus on the why. Oh, that person was so broken that the only way that they could feel good was by inflicting pain. Because that's the only way that they could feel. I can forgive them for being broken. And in forgiving the why, I begin to move myself away from the what of it. I change the tethers, the things those sticky things kind of that bind us into those spaces, or those prickly things, or those painful things that bind us in. Because I have forgiven the why. And in doing that, I'm giving myself more freedom to step away from that moment in time. And for many years, guys, I was a therapist. That's how I earned my living very, very successfully. And I still am in that way, but I don't make my monies very much by that anymore. But one of the things that I learned is so many people, adults, even people who are 50, 60, 70, 80, they say, but my mom, who has been dead for 30 years, by the way, right? But my mom did this to me when I was 3. Oh, yeah? I hear you. I feel for you. But why are you keeping that alive at 70, 60, 50, 80, 40, or whatever? And so many of us stay because of so many of our choices, our conscious choices of identity were made in childhood, where we developed our identity and created the rules for our being, molded in adolescence, and secured when we became rightful adults. And all of that is needed, but forgiveness is the essential tool to bring us forward and allow us to create new. Allow us, if I might say, to be new. The fifth step is have a symbol of forgiveness. For some of you that are artistic, draw something or put some crafts together that represent forgiveness. For those of us that are crystal lovers who have a lot of crystals, you can create a crystal, or you can create what we call a sigil, which is a kind of a spirit piece that you draw symbolically that represents forgiveness to you. And you don't have to be an artist to do it, but you must find a symbol for your forgiveness. Number 6 is do the process of forgiving. Think. State in concrete terms, what am I specifically forgiving? When you've done that, then feel it. Let your child, adolescent, parent, negative ego have the platform. Let them speak, Let them say whatever it is they want to say. And anybody else that is important to you in this process. Then learn both the negative and positive lessons for the process, because there's never a negative and there's never a positive, only when we're human. We live in a world of duality, and being physical, we have to have the black and the white, the up and the down, the good and the bad. All of those things work together. So you have to identify both the positive and the negative and learn what it was. Learn consciously, learn about what was it that I received negatively from this, what I learned negatively from this, what is it that I learned positively from this. Then I like to meditate. So I go into meditation. And the meditation is, I create an offering, okay? And for me, I might create another crystal that would be a sister crystal to my actual crystal that I have, but I create an offering. It can be anything of meaning. An offering has to have meaning to you. And then from there, you've got to feel genuine remorse. When you're feeling this genuine remorse, then I'm going to ask you in the meditation to put a violet sphere of light around you and your offering, and let this light rise, then descend all around the whole arena, the whole area, the sacred area. And for those of you that like to mark the space, you can draw your sacred space ahead of going in. You can do whatever the rituals are that are important to you as you're going into the process. But you're going to, within this beautiful, beautiful violet light, you're going to then have that light descend upon what is being forgiven, whether it's, if it's a person, that person is there. If it's an event, that event's there. If it's whatever an action, that action is there. And you're going to watch it dissolve. It dissolves and you're still there, okay? You're still there, but you also feel yourself as more malleable while you're in that violet light, excuse me, not violet, violet light, so that you allow your borders of self to kind of become a little bit more flowy. Okay. And then you reconcile, embrace, and merge. Okay. And those were the three words that Lazarus used. So spend time with those words: reconcile it, embrace it, and merge, to become one with this, so that you're now one with the object, person, or action that you're forgiving, yourself, and the violet light. There are no beginnings and endings. You are all being together. And this can and will set you free. With another person, you can set it free, set the action free, but you don't have to do anything. I want to be real clear about this. All you've got to do is be in this light and feel the merging. And then from there, you go feel your child, your adolescent, your adult, and your positive ego, which is that healthy part of our identity, of ourself. And all I'm asking you to do is feel it. And then think, state in words consciously in this meditation, What is its impact? And the last step is, once you've stated, you turn it over to God, Goddess, all that is. You see them receiving it. You let it go. And then you let it be. So one of the things, I know that I talked a mouthful here, but it's such an important process. But for myself, when I think of what held me in my tracks and stopped me from forgiving so much, was I viewed, which is why I called this the power of forgiveness, because in forgiveness, in that violet light in the meditation, in the process of the 7 steps, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to become more fluid and flexible. In other words, you're allowing your identity to have more fluidity and less rigidity. And for myself, what always stopped me is, I grew up in a household. To say that I'm type A is like an understatement, because, in my household, it's like, you have to achieve, you have to be the best, you have to do this. It was a minimum expectation for going to sleep at night and getting up in the morning. And I realized that I viewed surrender as defeat, rather than viewing surrender as such a beautiful place of power. Because in the surrendering, I have the courage to let go of everything. And I have the humility to say and feel that just because this worked or was for me for all of the years of my life, it does not need to be this way for me in the next second. And once I was able to really work with surrender, and that's why I bring it forward, it really began to up-level my relationship with forgiveness. And since forgiveness is part of and parcel with our magic, it increased the power and positivity and impact of my magic. It improved my relationships, including my relationship with myself. And it certainly improved my relationship with God, Goddess, all that is. And for me, that's my way of talking about the divine. But let me just say, part of this for me was, I realized this when I was in South Africa at a meditation retreat. And I've always been close to God. I've always been close my whole life. I've had a very strong spiritual relationship. And all of a sudden, I realized when I was in South Africa, one of the reasons that I love the goddess so much is because I wasn't angry at her. She created all that is with God. And I realized how angry I was with the masculine aspect of God, because I blamed God for all of the damn chauvinism in this world. I blamed God for all of the, as many of you know, my mom is a Holocaust survivor. I blamed God for not coming down and doing a damn thing to save anybody, at least that I saw. I'm not saying that that's what God did, okay? But in my mind, I realized that my anger at God was part of what I needed to surrender to and ask forgiveness for. And if I'm happy with Goddess, and I'm happy with all that is, but I am angry at God, guess what, guys? It's going to inhibit my relationship and my intimacy and my love with the divine. And so once I realized that, I was able to work with the surrendering to that, the forgiveness process. And I will tell you that today, my relationship with God, God is all that is. My relationship with God, Yeshua, the Holy Spirit, is so intimate, so loving, so beautiful. And I look forward to it becoming more loving, more intimate, and more beautiful, because forgiveness and surrender is not something we do once and say, we're done. It's something that we put in our toolbox, and we can bring it out whenever we want to. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you.
And, I tried to be mindful of the 1 hour, but I also have a set, if any of you were in one of the last workshop that I did, or the last mixer that I did, we worked with having different movements that we were creating. So as I was talking with you about the sigil, you can also integrate each of these things, create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 movements that really speak to you, and work through the process like that.
Mhm.
So it's only limited by your willingness and your imagination.
It's the crystal part that I did not understand. You said twice, make a crystal. Is it rather choose a crystal, or I didn't
I didn't
catch?
mean make a crystal. I said you could get, for those of us that are crystal lovers, make a crystal be your crystal of forgiveness.
Okay.
Okay. And then in meditation, if you're doing your offering, because it's meditation and you have the right to dream it the way you want to dream it, right? You can have another meditation, another offering that goes into your meditation that then gets put forward into, as you saw, we're giving it to the goddess, right? We're giving it to God, goddess, all that is, and let them then do what it is that they want. And the final step would be, as we turn away and allow them to do their thing, they give it back to us whenever they want to, however they want to, wherever they want to, in a form that serves our highest good.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Carol.
I love how you talked about the surrendering and the humility too, because that was my biggest thing in forgiveness. I would do all the things and it would be all great and wonderful. And then before I knew it, it was back to the end, back to what it was, because I hadn't had the humility to think of how it could be differently. I don't know how I missed that stuff, but it went right over my head for years. It was like a freaking merry-go-round, until I was able to have that humility and dream of how it could look differently. When you use the words series of, no, that was another one. What? I forget now, but I wrote it down somewhere. But I'm looking forward to your notes again too, because I feel like the way you presented it was just, I don't know, it was so gentle and powerful, all in the same role. And so I'm so grateful for that, Robin. Thank you.
Well, again, in this world, everybody here is US, right? Nobody here is Canadian. I'm
No,
all they're
Canadian.
Canadian. Okay, Carol. Yeah.
And
Oh,
Jen
that's
is,
right. The two of you are Canadian. That's right. But with the elections and everything going on in this country, we're always going to such crazy places. And I'm asking for forgiveness of all of us and each of us in this, right? Because each of us have played a part in chauvinism, which is what this truly is, what we're talking about in terms of this going on in our country right now. It's just the impacts of chauvinism coming upon us, right? And I I'm hoping that in our working of forgiveness, that we can lessen and mitigate and ultimately free chauvinism from our reality.
There's something that's so important in forgiving the why that also sets you free to truly forgive. And, that sometimes is hard for us to even to like, but they did X to me. They did it to me, or, whatever it is. And when you can move beyond that and forgive the why, it sets you free for your own forgiveness of yourself, but also it sets you free to actually change. It's a catalyst that forgiving the why is that in and of itself can be a catalyst for change, because it has all those ripple effects of surrender and and there's a level of compassion that takes place in that shifts your energy. And then, it's not so charged, that the whole situation, whatever it is, it lessens the charge. It also lessens the power that person or that situation has over you. So you can then approach it with neutrality and have the humility. Then it sets the stage for humility for something to be different. When you see somebody forgive, the person that, you see it very dramatically in courtrooms and stuff, the victim's mother forgives the perpetrator of her child. And you're like, how could they do that? Right. And somewhere within them, they forgive the why. And it allows for redemption, even if they're, incarcerated for the rest of their life or whatever. There is a quality of that then changes the trajectory of all the people around them. That's one of the wonderful powers of forgiveness.
finally, it is a gift of love
Yeah,
to forgive.
totally. Thank you, Robin. That was wonderful.
Mhm.
Welcome.
And you're very convinced. You
Well, I've worked with, let me share, I'm a 4 on the Enneagram. So,
Yes.
so forgiveness and I have been very close friends my whole life. Whether I could or I couldn't,
Mm.
it was still in my sphere for such a long time.
Mm.
And I find when you're talking about the why, Elizabeth, it's especially important when it's something that's really, really, really horrific, or when it's something really, really wonderful. Okay? Because sometimes you need to forgive something that's been really a relationship like that's really, really wonderful, you know? I'm going to give you a personal example. My mom was the person who dumped the most shame on me. And yet my mom loved me. I had an incredible relationship with her. We, she just died a little more than a year ago, but just this wonderful, beautiful relationship. And when I realized that, you would not believe the rage that came up, because that I had suppressed for so long. But ultimately, I was able to forgive that, go through the process and forgive it. And my mom and I worked on it ultimately at times together. And we created from that point forward a healthier relationship. And that was in my mid-20s, in my mid-late 20s. So if you want to think about it, that colored my entire adult relationship with my mom. That singular willingness.
Yeah. You're right. We often only think about it in terms of something atrocious, this happened, this devastating. So you have to, in order to forgive, you can't forgive the what, you forgive the why. But you're right, in incredibly loving relationships, especially when it has to do with our parents. If you have a loving relationship with your parents, they're always dumping stuff on you. And, there is that process can happen so that your relationship can deepen and grow. And even in other situations, like even situationally, that's really interesting. I'll have to ponder that with super positive things besides like interpersonal relationships where I see that very clearly. So thank you for bringing that up as well.
Yes, that was one on my list too. And the humility goes so well with that too, because, if you don't have that humility, it won't lift. And you said that so elegantly when you said it. I was too busy looking at you and listening to write it down. But I'm sure it's in the notes that we can have. I want the notes.
You can send them to all of us present here. You can send them to Dana, maybe you will send it to us present.
She said just email her and she'll email it back to you.
Yeah,
So just email her.
Email me and I'll email it to you. And
that way, no middleman.
Okay. If you don't have my email, if that causes stress to you, it's Dana. I can give it to you now. It's Robin, ROBIN, period or a dot, dimensions, DIMENSIONS @gmail.
It's also in the newsletter and on the website and
yeah, exactly
on
what
the Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anybody can call me too. If I don't have the number in my phone, I might not answer, but I will call you back because there's just so much spam, and let me know the best way, and I'll be more than happy to send it to you.
This is Trevi. I'm sorry. We're having internet difficulties again. That's why I couldn't get in, but I'm so happy for what I did get in for. And I wanted to share something. I was in a Lazarus workshop once, and Lazarus was talking to a woman who had something really bad happen to her. And he was so loving. He said, he was talking to her about forgiveness. And he said to her, you may never, ever forgive them for what they did. He said, and that is okay. He said, it's important to forgive them for the why. He said, but this may be something that you don't have to, and that's not required for forgiveness. But the why will allow you to free yourself from this. And I never will forget the tenderness and the permission that he gave her to not have to forgive. This was a very, very terrible thing that I think would be hard for anyone to forgive. And it was really beautiful the way that he spoke to her about it and just said, yeah, this was really bad here, and helped her find the why and understanding why this person had done such a terrible thing.
I think you related it to like the cord that will keep you connected to that energy for
Yeah,
lifetimes. And if you don't forgive the why, then you don't break the cord. And so
yeah,
you'll recreate it again and again and again until you let go of that, diminish that cord, or not diminish, but disintegrate.
yeah.
By
You
the
break the
forgiveness.
connection when you
Yeah.
for the why, because you have the understanding that comes with the why, and then you can find the compassion for them as a human being. But for the actual act, it's not required to forgive that, because some things are just really, really bad. And I was really grateful to Lazarus for sharing the grace with her of that she didn't have to, that was okay. And it was just so beautiful and so healing to hear that for myself, and I'm sure for others, that some things are really, they're really tough and really hard, and
It kind of sounds like the surrendering too, to be able
yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah.
surrender into your life. So.
And Robin, you were talking about forgiving your mom. And in another Lazarus workshop, when he was first working with us with our shadow in LA, you might have been there. He had us pick one of our parents that was our shadow and to forgive them. And so here we are in meditation. He's counting us down, and we're going into meditation. And then all of a sudden, Lazarus goes, "Turn the lights on." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Turn the lights on." He goes, "Stop." And he said, "You are not willing to forgive your parents yet." And he said, "We're going to take a break." And he said, "And we want you to go out and think about forgiving this parent and why you won't forgive them." And I had picked my mom, and I realized on the break, like, oh my gosh, this must really be bad if Lazarus has to stop a meditation to go, nope, nope, you're not there. And then I looked at, like, I had more compassion for a stranger than I would for my mom. And I actually forgave her, and my relationship with her totally, totally changed. And I never dreamt that it could have, but it did. And when she passed, we were great friends. So anyway, I don't know if anybody here was in that workshop, but it was pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about timing and forgiveness
Mhm.
and how you have to go through what you have to go through before you can forgive. You have to feel what you have to feel before you can forgive. And so, forgiving the why. I mean, in my experience, I have found, let's say in the last person I had to forgive, it was really hard to get out of the what into the why. I wasn't ready. I knew that was going to come, but I didn't want to, because I was really angry and I hated him. And I wanted to be in those feelings for as long as I needed to be in those feelings. And so there came a point where I was willing to move to the why. And I had to do that forgiveness process a number of times. So it's interesting to me that, there's a timing for it. At least there was for me.
I agree.
I think that's also why there was so much emphasis on giving voice
Mhm.
to those emotions at that moment in time in the process, because you have to give them the voice. If we don't give those parts of self, those aspects of self, the voice, and they don't feel heard, all we're doing is sublimating, right? And so, yes, timing, it can, like I said, it can take boom, 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 or it
Yeah.
can be something that you go to many, many, many times. And before you can get to the place where you can truly let it go. But I should say this for those of you that are not part of, have not been part of Lazarus, there's no way of doing any of these processes wrong. Okay, everybody does it right.
Mhm.
Okay. As long as you are authentically involved in the process, you are right. Okay. So if you get to a point and you say, okay, I got to step 5 and then I fell asleep. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Don't worry about it. Either continue it when you want or go back in again and start again. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's that each of us, it's the action of us being willing to own all parts of ourselves. Because without that ownership, no change can ever happen.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. And thank you, Janice, for saying that. Yeah.
So, does anybody else have any questions or anything else they want to say?
Thank you so much, Robin, for doing this presentation. I think that those 7, I mean, it seems like it should be easy. It's not, and yet it's a good guideline for getting from that owning your resistance to that place of release and letting go. Yeah. So
I'm a multi-sensory learner, Celeste, and I love drawing and things like that. Not to sell to people or anything else. I just love color and playing around with things. And so when I would have a process, be entering into a process that I found I would be falling asleep a lot on, or I couldn't listen to, one of the things that I did to start with is I would make sigils for each of them and just spend time playing with the sigils, tracing the sigils, looking at the sigils. I might embed some of the words of the process into the sigil, whatever it was I was doing. And I allowed myself different expressions of intimacy to begin to work the process. So again, there's not a right way and a wrong way. It's just have fun with it, experience it, and know that everybody has the capacity, if they choose, to do this well and to go from 1 to 7 and beyond.
With the ease of the intricacy, right?
I used to think of 7-step processes just like this. Now I think of 7-step processes like this, and then 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 like this, and in all of the directions, and it makes me happy to think of it like that.
It's like going to the different levels too, because nothing is the same when we change if we allow it to be different, and it's, I don't know for anybody else, but I know that I'm doing it well when I'm scared, because every time it's new, which is often because I work on myself constantly, it's like, you know, and I'm been working to integrate that into excitement rather than the fear of it, you know. But I know I'm in the right spot if I'm like, oh, this is new, this is different. Oh, yeah, it's good. That's a good thing, Dana. Breathe. Breathe. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you very
So
much.
much.
Yes. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you,
are-
everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you next month.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Night, everybody.
Night.
you.
Night.
Thank you. Lots of love to everyone.
Yes, good
You
night.
too. Glad you
Bye.
could make it, Trevi.
Yes.
Bye, Joe. Bye.
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 Yay, bye. Yay. Mwah. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All
You-
right.
You want to send the Zoom?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. All
I
right.
got lots to share.
I look forward to it. Yay. Awesome. Sweet
Have a
dreams,
good
honey.
day. Bye.
You too. Bye.